The Cavaliers finally fall back down to earth. Are the Lakers playing too well to make a deal? The Nuggets have a starter controversy, and the Heat, well, they just have controversy all the time, always. We'll talk about all of it and the future plans for the Clippers and the Sixers today on Locked On NBA.
You are Locked On NBA, your daily NBA podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On NBA. Thanks for making us your first listen of the day. We are free. We are available wherever you get your podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Super Bowl 59 is here, and there's no better way to make every play more exciting than with FanDuel Sportsbook. New customers can bet just $5, and if you win, you'll score $200 in bonus bets. Download the app or head to FanDuel.com to get started. I'm Doug Branson, host of Locked On Hornets, and your Shot Clock Sherpa, guiding you through the NBA's biggest stories with the help of Locked On's local experts. With me are two of Locked On's premier national NBA experts from the Locked On Nuggets podcast and senior NBA writer for the Action Network. We have Matt Moore, who I'm sure is very happy that his Kansas City Chiefs are in Super Bowl 59, wearing the Victory Monday t-shirt.
It's a familiar feeling, Doug. It's just nice, the comforts that you're so used to. It's nice to have those feelings.
And from the Locked On Bulls podcast, we have Hayes. Hayes, any familiar feelings for the Chicago Bears?
No, actually, thank God it's not familiar feelings for the Chicago Bears, because it's familiar feelings that'd be a problem. No, a lot feels different around here. We just got to make sure we're going to win on the field. That's for sure.
All right, enough about the NFL. This is Locked On NBA, and a lot happened over the weekend. And Locked On NBA Game Night has been recapping all the games. I thought that we might zoom out on this show and catch up with some of our favorite contenders in a segment that I'm calling Don't Look Now. Later on in the episode, we'll check in on the Nuggets and the Clippers. And of course, there's always more news around Jimmy Butler. But first, the Cleveland Cavaliers. Don't look now. The Cavs no longer have the best record in the NBA after losing 3 straight games, no longer on a 73-game win pace. Is this a really good team regressing back from a great start? Or are there signs that all of this was false gold? Pyrrhic, Matt.
I think it's so 2 of the losses are the Rockets. So the thing here I think we got to talk about at some point is just like, how good are the Rockets? We really need to have that conversation. I think we should do that this week. But look, the defense just isn't there. Like, they're just not quite as good defensively as they were under JB Bickerstaff. Now the offense is way better. Like, the offense was bad under JB, and it's the number 1 unit in the league. I think a lot of guys are coming back down to earth from a shooting percentage standpoint. And I think that what we're finding is the Cavaliers are awesome. They're great. They can win the title if things go right for them. I think they're still a title team, but like, they're not like ahead of the pack. They're not like clear. No one really put them there. Like, we never put them like really ahead of Boston, and we shouldn't. Like, they're still behind Boston. Boston should be the favorites. Cavaliers are right next, even if they finish with a better record.
Yeah, I mean, I think that this was always going to happen. You're going to face some adversity over the course of the season. It'd be different if the Cavs were like this team that had led the league in record before, and then they're having this losing streaks are gonna happen. It's a 3-game losing streak. The biggest thing, the story here that I'm surprised Matt didn't pick up on, is that Dean Wade's out tonight, which means it's automatically going to be another loss for the Cleveland Cavaliers. So it's going to be 4 in a row. But outside of that, like, I'm not too worried about it. The Cavs are still the team that we all looked at them to be. They're still one of the best teams in the NBA. And it's going to be an interesting playoff run for them in the Eastern Conference. They should not have been favored over Boston, because Boston has been there before. They've won the title before, and they grew over years. They got better each and every year as far as going further and further. But I'm not going to act like because this 3-game losing streak, 1 against the Philadelphia 76ers, 2 against the Rockets, that now I'm all of a sudden looking at this team much less than I did before. They're still a good team from top to bottom. Their core is still amazing. They still have just as good of a chance as they did last week of winning the title.
This game doesn't count because Wade's out tonight. Like, it doesn't count against the standings. And I'll make adjustments to all my metrics, which are, of course, Dean Wade adjusted metrics.
Well, Dean Wade, not the only Cleveland Cavalier missing, and that might be part of the problem. Let's go to Danny Cunningham and Locked On Cavaliers for more.
Defense right now for the Cavaliers it's a significant problem. It is something that I do think is, if you want to be concerned, and I don't think the sky is falling because the Cavs have lost 3 straight games. They're still a great team. They're going through a rough patch. They were the best Eastern Conference team defensively for the entire month of December. And then you get to January, and going into the game on Saturday night against Houston, they're 25th in defense in the NBA. This is such an inconsistent defense, and I think it starts at the point of attack. I think that is where the Cavs are having the most problems, and I don't think that it's a coincidence that a lot of their issues have happened with Isaac Okoro out, right? He's played in, I believe, 5 games since December 13th with Karis LeVert, who's now missed, I believe, 5 consecutive games due to a wrist injury that he's not played in, and you've not seen the Cavs defense be really good for a majority of that. You've seen them have some of the worst games they've had all season. I don't think that those things are coincidental.
They will get another test at the point of attack against Detroit and Cade Cunningham tonight. Matt, you were signaling there.
Do we have time for me to rant for a second?
To show up time. We always have time for a Matt Moore rant.
For the love of God. It drives me nuts, man. Like, how many games has Lonzo Ball played this season for the Bulls, Hayes? Rough.
Got to be somewhere in the high 20s at this point.
Yeah, 20s, half the season, okay? The Nuggets have been without Aaron Gordon and Jamal Murray. The Lakers have missed, Jared Vanderbilt. They had to play D'Angelo Russell for a while. Everyone has these kind of problems. Like the Houston Rockets were without Jabari Smith. If you go down the list, if every time you're like, well, they didn't have Isaac Okoro. I love Isaac Okoro, but Isaac Okoro, Danny, you have to understand you're going to have injuries. Your roster has to be built to sustain them in the NBA regular season. You can't just throw out all of these stats because you were missing some guys. Now, Mobley's a major deal, huge deal. I get how good he is. I'm not denying that. But the Thunder have had to play without a center. They had 0 centers on roster and still have the number 1 defense. So this is my point, is that those guys will make you better and get you to your ceiling. But your floor's got to be high enough to where if you have to miss guys, you can get through, unless it's something like Dallas when they were without Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving. The whole team is built around them. I just don't think that you can hand wave away these things with injury, because the teams you're facing have them too.
All right, that was good. I rate that rant, I'll say 7 of 10. Wasn't top Matt Moore rant, but it was, you almost got there.
I'll take it. It's a solid for a Monday.
All right. Don't forget about those role players, because we're going to talk about role players with this next team. Don't look now. The Lakers have won 5 of their last 6 games. Is this helping or hurting Anthony Davis and LeBron's case for the Lakers to make a significant move before the deadline? Before you answer that question, let's hear from Locked On Lakers.
Very solid win for the Lakers, 118-108 over Golden State. It was soon after Anthony Davis made his comments about wanting a center to ESPN and Shams Charania. It was a night where Rui Hachimura missed the game with a calf injury, and it was also the return of Jared Vanderbilt to the lineup. And you put all of those things together, and it is aggressively furthering the conversation about where the Lakers are and what should happen before the trade deadline.
Banking on Vando moving forward in terms of your planning is somewhere between reckless, wishful thinking, and stupid.
Okay, Hayes, would it be reckless, stupid for Rob Pelinka and the Los Angeles Lakers to basically steady as she go with Jared Vanderbilt returning to the lineup and no major trade like AD and LeBron want?
Yeah, I mean, I do think it's a bit reckless. I won't necessarily say that it's stupid because, like I said, what trade is out there that's going to dramatically change things for the Lakers? I just don't know. There are players that can definitely help. I mean, Miles Turner's reportedly available. That is somebody that maybe they can get or whatever else. But, ultimately, I don't think they're necessarily banking on Vando to all of a sudden change what they're doing here. He can help if he's going to stay healthy, but he hasn't really been healthy for the majority of a year and a half, so you can't necessarily bank on him all that much. But I do think the Lakers need to do something small here. I just don't think that it's going to be the deal that I know Lakers fans are hoping that the team's going to make, and I hope they're able to have some patience there because it just doesn't make any sense. It's not realistic for the Lakers to make a huge swing for a star right now, when you're considering that most of the players that they have that would interest or be able to facilitate that happening, they actually want to keep for the future. So I just think people have to kind of be patient a little bit here with the Lakers.
Some of this, like, here's like I think an interesting question is if you told Lakers fans, hey, you can try and get a lesser addition now. You can get Walker Kessler. Okay, maybe Walker Kessler and John Collins. And you have to move out of Rui and some other pieces, Gabe Vincent, right? And you got to give up that first, though. You have to give up the first in order to get it done. Okay. Or you can keep the first, which is going to increase the chances. Let's say it makes it 50-50 that you get the next star after LeBron retires. Which do you want? Like, that to me is like an interesting question of, do you want to try, like, do you want to try and maximize with this team? Or do you want to open up the possibility that you're able to get the next star that wants out, whoever that is? Because next star that wants out, odds are pretty good they're going to want to be a Laker. I think you have to consider that. If you're the Lakers, why would you not be like, we'll just get another one later? Like, we'll just go get the next superstar, and it'll be great. We'll just keep winning. Like, this team's good enough, and then we'll get another superstar, and then we'll be good enough, and then we can go from there. I don't think that they're a team that feels like they have to go all in. I don't know if they do, and that to me, I think, is a more interesting question.
Now, we did get some additional reporting from Shams Charania that the Lakers have made multiple attempts to secure Walker Kessler from the Utah Jazz, but they were unable to meet the Jazz's high asking price for Kessler, which to me seems like one of us calling up Domino's Pizza and like haggling for the pizza. Like, the price is the price. I don't know. I just don't know that everything that I've seen is Utah really admires Kessler and wants to hold on, and I think it's going to be a high price.
They're having the same problem with Portland. Portland's like, yeah, sure, you can have Jeremy Grant or you can have Robert Williams, but it's going to take 2 firsts. And they're like, no, like, you sure? They call back and they're like, okay, 1 first. And they're like, no, like, it's 2 firsts. Like, it's still 2 firsts. They keep having the same thing. And they're trying to wear him down and hope that they get to the deadline. The hope is that you open these conversations and then you get to the deadline and you're the team that they go to, that everybody's like, why didn't you call us? Because we've seen so many of those, right? Like Cam John, or Dorian Finney-Smith. Everybody's like, why didn't you come back to us with another offer? The Lakers are trying to do that again with the Jazz and the Blazers.
All right, well, throw in some breadsticks and we'll call it a deal. That's what I say. All right, coming up on the Locked On NBA podcast, we're going to check in with the Denver Nuggets, who have a little bit of a controversy stirring with who should start, Russell Westbrook or Aaron Gordon. We'll get the answer from Matt and the analysis from Hayes coming up. Today's episode of Locked On NBA is brought to you by FanDuel. Super Bowl 59 is here. 1 game, 2 teams, endless possibilities, and there's no better way to make every play more exciting than with FanDuel Sportsbook, America's #1 sportsbook. Whether it's predicting the first touchdown, calling the MVP, or even betting on the coin toss, FanDuel makes it easy to get in on the action. With live betting all game long, you can adjust your bets as the game unfolds and feel the thrill from kickoff to the final whistle. The live betting feature lets you stay involved no matter what happens on the field, and the app is super easy to navigate. Plus, knowing that you can place a $5 bet and potentially win $200 in bonus bets for the Super Bowl? That's icing on the cake. That sounds delicious. FanDuel is delicious. Download the app. Head to FanDuel.com to get started. Bet just $5, and if you win, you're going to score $200 in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com. Bet with FanDuel, official partner of Super Bowl 59. More Locked On NBA ahead. Thanks for making Locked On NBA your first listen every day. Your favorite NBA team has a free daily newsletter. Go to LockedOnDaily.com, subscribe. Stay up to date with local expert analysis and amazing writing from Katie Heindel, Mike Shearer, and Locked On Fantasy Basketball tips from Josh Lloyd. The Nuggets, they seem to have 6 starters and only 5 spots, so someone has to sit. Is it Russell Westbrook, who's been great playing with Nikola Jokic, or is it Aaron Gordon, one of their defensive anchors? Here's Ryan Blackburn breaking down why this decision isn't so simple.
Russ has earned enough of an opportunity here to play the minutes and play the minutes with Jokic. The team is so good in those minutes with Russell Westbrook and Nikola Jokic that it has become a conversation, and it's one that I did not expect to be having at this point. And Aaron Gordon has been injured enough at this point that, hey, is it the worst idea to cut his minutes down and to say, hey, we don't know if you can survive for this entire season, given that you've spent 20 games out already due to a right calf strain. Like, that is a lot of time. And I think Denver's goal should be, how can we get to the playoffs in one piece and playing the best basketball that we possibly can? So it's a fair question. I tend to think that they'll just say screw that and just throw Aaron back into the starting lineup and put Russell Westbrook to the bench. But it's a fascinating one.
Is it fascinating to you, Matt? Is this a conversation that really revolves around the difference between the regular season and the playoffs? Like, will the Russell Westbrook-Jokic pairing with Gordon as sixth man work in the postseason, or is this sort of a regular season rhythm phenomenon type of thing?
Man, that's like the biggest question, right? Is Russ is shooting better from three than he ever has, but it's still not very good. So the question is just going to be like, when teams dare him to shoot, what does that look like for Denver? Now, there's counters you can run for that. You don't have to just take those threes. You can drive against it, force them to commit, and then they can pass in tight spaces because Russ and Jokic are so good together. But one of the questions I have is about kind of the cumulative impact of that truncated spacing. Okay, it's not just Westbrook. It's if you play Westbrook and Gordon, for instance, your spacing is really limited. Christian Brown, not a shooter. So I'm honestly not sure. I did suggest on the show last night, wearing a different Chiefs shirt, by the way, that the Nuggets should basically go to a flex starter, whatever the matchup calls for, because AG's fine coming off the bench, Russ is fine coming off the bench. Whatever the situation calls for, play that starter, because they both, I think, are at a point in their careers where they're okay with it, Hayes. A lot of guys wouldn't be. I think this team could actually go to a flex starter option here.
Yeah, I think at that point you have to default on, like, what are we competing here for? If everybody's on the same page and trying to do what's best to get them a title, that flex starting option that you mentioned should be the best option here. But the minutes with Jokic and Westbrook on the court together are like, they're plus 217, have a net rating of plus 12.5, an offensive rating of 126.9. The defense rating it's not like it's terrible at 114.4. Like, I think anybody would look at that and then say, yeah, we need to try to figure out how to keep this thing together. Now, if you're that's minutes overall, like, as long as they're able to play the minutes together, does who's starting really matters? I think that's the question here. Like, you want to figure out the best way to balance the minutes between these guys and to have Jokic and Russell Westbrook on the court together. But when it comes down to starting, I love what Matt pointed out there. Like, just go to whatever the best matchup is that night, any given night. What is the team that you're playing against? Who offers you the best look there? And then try to take advantage of it that way. That puts them in a situation and the luxury that not a lot of people have. So I'm not mad if that ends up being the case there.
All right, speaking of who will sit on the bench and who will play, Jimmy Butler is set to return to the Miami Heat off his second suspension of the season. Locked On Heat's David Ramil tells you why it's past time for him to sit until he's been traded.
I don't think that they should play him, and I've been pretty adamant about that. I think it behooves no one in order for him to see any kind of time out there whatsoever. He's not at 100%. And I know that you could argue it. It's hard to quantify whether or not he's giving his full effort, but clearly he hasn't been. And I think ESPN's Bobby Marks tweeted out something late last week following that suspension, showing that the numbers back up the fact that Jimmy's shot attempts are down. His effort is reflective of that. And I think it's pretty clear that you're not going to get 100% of what Jimmy Butler can offer you as a player on that floor. And that being the case, well, what's the point of having him out there? Like, it serves no one. It hurts the Heat because there you are putting him out there and you're not letting the players continue to develop and build the kind of chemistry and camaraderie that they'll need to carry them through for the rest of the season, whatever the outcome might be.
All right, Hayes, what do you think? To bench or not to bench Jimmy Butler when he returns tonight?
I mean, that is such a difficult tightrope to walk because either way, Jimmy's going to cause a ruckus. So, I mean, my response to that would have been you should have traded him already. Now, I know it's not that simple, but I think that if he comes back, you have to play him. I think that's just the case. The NFL Players Association's already sniffing around this. I think you're going to have to play him if it comes back just for the business aspect of it. But it's a complete and utter crap show on the court, what you're going to probably see from Jimmy Butler in a case like this. Like, I would love to be able to bench him and just until you find a trade for him, leave him there. Once the trade deadline passes, if you can't find a deal for him, he'll just have to finish out the season and be an adult. But I think they're going to have to play him because of a lot of factors going on.
Normally, I would suggest something like you should start him and then pull him after the first play. Take a timeout and pull him after the very first play and just sit him down. But the problem is, like, you don't know how he'll react. Like, you don't even, like, what if he just doesn't come off the floor? What if Jimmy Butler just like doesn't come off the floor? I don't know really how to manage this. Like, you're dealing with an irrational creature pretty clearly. Like, you're just dealing with an irrational actor here in Jimmy Butler. So I don't know what the answer is. I have no way to know how to solve this problem because you have an intractable set of circumstances. You can't move on from him. You can't send him home, and you can't play him. There's no good options here, which is why they feel so stuck and why the situation continues to feel like it's spiraling pretty wildly out of control.
So Miami spiraling, they will play at home against Orlando. Another interesting situation there in Orlando because they've got Franz Wagner back, came back to very little fanfare, but they've also got Paolo Banchero, and yet their offense is still struggling, but this could be an opportunity for them to get right against Miami.
Yeah, a little bit. I liked what I saw with them versus the Pistons. It looked clunky early, and then they really kind of came back. I think that Magic team is... I'm hoping that Magic team is primed for a run. I know who I really want to know what thinks of all about all this entire situation is Bam Adebayo. That's what I want to know. Is like I think we know what Tyler thinks, but I want to know what Bam Adebayo thinks of this entire situation with the Heat and Jimmy Butler.
And I mean, he's had his fair share of struggles, but I think it's fair to say, like, how do you fairly evaluate some of the players on this team when they've had to deal with so much? So,
right. Yep.
All right, coming up. Yeah, coming up on the Locked On NBA podcast, we're going to talk about more future outlooks for teams, the Clippers and the Sixers. They were involved in a pretty big deal recently, but these teams are moving in opposite directions. We'll get Matt and Hayes' thoughts on the other side. Back here on Locked On NBA, thanks so much for making us your first listen of the day. Our final segment is going to be on future plans for two teams interlinked by a recent big trade, but going in opposite directions, the Philadelphia 76ers and the Los Angeles Clippers. Let's start with the Sixers. David Aldridge, reporting for The Athletic, writes that the Sixers have no plans to tank this season in an effort to save their top 6 protected first-round pick that they owe to Oklahoma City. Just very simple question. Is this the best move for the Sixers? Is it their only move, Matt, that the Sixers could make at this point? Just compete and hope things work out?
Yeah. I mean, look, I just think they tied themselves to it, right? Like, you committed all the money to Paul George. I think moving on from him right now would be a weird and difficult decision. You probably wouldn't get good value back. You still got Maxey, who's entering into his prime, and for better or worse, you got Joel. Like, you built the team a certain way. And if you're going to do a deconstruction, it's got to be probably in the off season. So I get it. I just don't think that, maybe this, I've been wondering, like, maybe this works out. Maybe they get to the playoffs. Maybe this is the year it finally goes right. I don't know why I would think that, but maybe this is the year. I think the possibility of it going right is too good for you to give up on the season.
I'm of two minds of this because you never want to, and the team's never going to come out and say, yeah, we're more focused on the pick. We're going to tank. Like, they'll never say that. But, like, even if their goal isn't necessarily keeping the pick, even if they want to move that pick to try to use that to bring in another starter pair of Joel Embiid, you would think that actually maybe even helps them with their future goals. But I do think that they're going to go out and compete. Hell, they got the Bulls in front of them, which is they only have a 1-game lead above them. The Bulls are spiraling right now. So the Philadelphia 76ers can get it correct, get it right. They can still make that 10 seed to make the play-in. And there's a world in which they do both. They can still make the play-in and maybe still have a chance to keep their pick, depending on how things shake in the lottery. So the 76ers may just be playing the odds here. Let's just play as hard as we can. Let's compete because that's what we came into the season. That was the goal. And let's see what we can do. I still think, and maybe I'm just holding out hope way too far past the point where I should have. I still think that this team can go on a run. And in the Eastern Conference, all you need is a solid 2 weeks. That's all you need is a solid 2 weeks.
And they might not even have the opportunity to protect that top 6 pick because there are a lot of bad teams that are already in prime position to get worse. So I think it would be difficult, even if they wanted to unwind things right now, for them to get that bad. But let's talk about Joel Embiid, because in that article for The Athletic by David Aldridge, there was this insinuation that maybe there's a fan sentiment of like, how about we just rest Joel Embiid for the rest of the season, get his body completely right, and then go after things. You can still compete with Maxey and George, but let's get Embiid right. My question would be, is that even possible? Like with everything you've heard about his physical condition, would that even be possible to get his body right? Or are the Philadelphia 76ers in a situation where it's sort of like get the most you can out of Embiid while you can, Matt?
I don't think we can answer that because we just don't have any. We're not privy to the medical details. I think the sentiment, though, when you read Embiid's quotes and the vibe around Philly is just like he just may never be right. Like, it just may be one of those things where he's just never right. And no matter what you do, the other thing I would say is like, look, you can rest him, but then he's out of rhythm, and that does matter. Like even we go into next season, like taking that much time away from basketball is not great for you. Like you need to be in kind of a play, rest, ramp up, play, like those kind of cycles for most of the players. So I can't really see the upside on it. And I just don't know that Joel is in a place where he's willing to give up on a season of his career when he doesn't know how many he has. I think for him, it's fair to respect his decision to want to compete.
Hayes, where's your confidence level that Joel Embiid can, I'll set it at 60, can ever play 60 plus games again, not even the 65 threshold? And what's your confidence level that Joel Embiid can just get back to, even if it's not 60 games, a close to an all NBA level, we'll just call it, or close to MVP level?
Yeah, I mean, I think all NBA level Joel Embiid can get to if he just is on the court. Like, regardless of the games played, like he can play at that level. Like we saw the man with Ball's palsy last year in the playoffs put up ridiculous numbers. Like he can do that if he's going to be on the court. The key thing is him being healthy, and not only healthy, it's that being healthy at the right time. Can he be healthy during the playoffs when the Philadelphia 76ers need him the most? That's what they're going to have to try to manage, right? And that's what I thought the goal was coming into the season, is like have a team to where when you don't have Joel Embiid out there, they still can be competitive enough. And then, of course, you're trying to maintain and keep him as healthy as you can throughout the season so he's ready for the playoffs. It didn't work out that way because the season just gone completely left for the Philadelphia 76ers. But I do think that if he can be healthy, I have no doubt that he can play at an all-NBA level. How healthy and how long he's going to be able to stay healthy, that's the biggest question there, of course. And as far
all right,
as
let's move to –
sorry.
Go ahead.
Your
go
original
ahead.
question, will he ever play 60 or more games again? I bet on probably not.
All right, let's move to my upstart Clippers, who are in 6th place in the Western Conference right now, but they're 6-1 in games where Kawhi Leonard plays. But it appears they are looking past Kawhi and towards the 26-27 free agency period. Jake Fisher, reporting for the Steinline, writes this: the Clippers, according to league sources, are still keen on keeping their books clean, indicating to rival front offices that they are reluctant to bring back any long-term salary in any potential trade activity over the remaining 12 days of NBA trade season. The Clippers appear to be setting themselves up to try and truly capitalize on owner Steve Ballmer's well-chronicled willingness to spend and the allure of their shiny new Intuit Dome home when Leonard's tenure concludes. Hayes, is this good long-term planning, or should they be investing heavily in a team right now that is overachieving and starting to look like it's coming together?
I say it probably is smart. Like I get what Kawhi is when he's on the court, but like if you've looked at what Kawhi, how often he's been able to be on the court, like you can't bet on that. That's not a sustainable business model. Like, yeah, he's great. Make no mistake about it. Like he's one of the best two-way players in the league when he's still on the court. But you just can't invest and put all your eggs in that basket. So I'm not mad at the Clippers actually doing something smart and looking forward and saying, hey, maybe this is the next time we could really make our big swing at things. Yeah, the team's overachieving and it's great. And they've honestly been a pretty fun team to watch, as much as I hate to admit that. They've been okay. But you don't want to over invest in something because they look good now. You do have to always look at the future. And I, for one, commend them to actually look towards that future a little bit.
Doug, hit the Clippy.
Oh, yeah. Here's the Clippy. Usually we play that when he says something bad about the Clippers. That's the first good Clippy.
That's Clippy popping in to be like, hey said something nice, and then disappears again. Woohoo! And look, I think a good question here is, with their limited assets, what can they really get? Like, what do you think that adding like a role player, they can't compete with the offers for Cam Johnson, right? So if they can't get it, let's even say that they could. Does Cam Johnson get the Clippers over the top? Probably not. Like, they probably got just as good of a chance given where their roster is at. If they add Zach LaVine, no, like you got Harden, like that doesn't make any sense. Like, there's no kind of idea that's like, but if they do this, they could get over the top, and then it's like, yeah, they could add a third star. I'm like, you mean like Paul George? Like they decided not to go down that road, right? And PG's been bad this season, but at the time he was good for the Clippers. So to me, this makes perfect sense. Just, hey, come what may, we're going to ride out the Harden and Kawhi era, sell some tickets, and then we'll start over with like trying to reshape things with a new star and try and shift the balance between the Lakers and the Clippers and try and become competitive. Because I do think a lot of people around the league are looking at the Clippers and being like, that does seem like a pretty great organization. They want to win. They're willing to spend. The arena's awesome. I think they're in a good spot for the future. There's no need to go in on this with so many uncertainties, not only with Kawhi, but with Harden getting up there in age and his playoff proclivities. Like, I just think that they're making the right move to keep the powder dry, what little powder they have left.
Yeah, I just wonder if they win a few playoff series and they just surprise everyone. Well, how does that affect? I think Ballmer is the big variable, right? Like his energy, his enthusiasm, his desire to win, his desire to do whatever it takes. Like that just sits there as the sort of variable, the powder keg that could explode.
Everyone's, I think, though, is looking for, because the Lakers are in this spot too. They don't want the win now, shoot the moon. They're looking for the option of this move is good for us now and later. And there's just not that many guys who fit that profile. So I don't see an opportunity coming for them in that situation. I also have a hard time wondering, like, if they get to the end of a playoff run, if they win 2 playoff series, let's say they win 1 playoff series, they lose a tough 7-game series second round. Are they really going to be like, oh, man, if they'd only traded for whoever, they could have made it? I don't think so.
All right, let us know what you think on YouTube, youtube.com/@LockedOnNBA. If you like what you heard today, subscribe to Locked On NBA wherever you get podcasts, including on YouTube. We are talking about the NBA every single day of the week, and Locked On NBA Game Time, recapping all the games after they happen. Thanks for making Locked On NBA your first listen. Thanks to Matt and Hayes for their expertise. Enjoy tonight's action. Be kind to each other, and we'll see you right back here on Tuesday's Locked On NBA, where I guess we're going to talk about the Rockets and how good they've been. So stay tuned for that.